Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick raw video blog, if you will, because I feel like this is a really important message. I want to talk about tonight, or tomorrow, or daytime, whatever time it is when you're watching this. For me, it's tonight. I want to talk about the effects of shock and being in a state of shock, and perhaps what the purpose of that is and what it's like to experience that. And I can only speak about this right now because I was in a really minor accident tonight. However, I think, there are obviously varying degrees of being in shock, but I think no matter what, if you're in shock, then it affects you. I mean, anyone can judge and say, well, someone who's in a bigger accident was dealing with a greater state of shock, but, judgments aside, I think that being in shock is being in shock, period. And I think that it rattles us to our core for a reason. I've been in states of shock before in terms of losing loved ones suddenly, and I'm sure many. This is the thing. Everyone can relate to this in some way. Because whether you get in an accident, or someone passes away unexpectedly, or you lose your job unexpectedly, or some tragedy of some sort happens, it happens to us all and we're affected by it. And I'm sorry if I'm not overly clear in this video because I still am kind of in a state of shock a little bit from this car accident tonight. But at the same time, I feel like I just need to make this video right now while I'm in this state because I still feel like I'm very strongly connected and able to stream the messages that need to come through. And the thing is, when you're in a state of shock, that's exactly it. You are in a different state of being. And everything that was in the forefront of your mind and in your consciousness is just kind of pushed back and almost forgotten. And that can feel really scary. It can also feel numbing too. I think there's different stages of being in shock, depending on, time. I think it takes time to kind of come out of it, but again, judgments aside, I don't even know. It's such a tough topic. And I think what I was getting at is everything just kind of becomes a blur. And I think at first it's numbing, but then later it feels kind of scary. And I think a lot of fear can come up. But I don't think that the purpose of being in shock is to get us to live out of fear. I actually think it's the opposite. I think that if anything, it reminds us and it gives us a jolt to be present and to not be afraid. And to be grateful for being alive and be grateful for our physical bodies and be grateful for having protection and for having angels around us. To be grateful for our life path and to trust that everything that happens is for a reason, whether it's an accident or not. We perceive things as being an accident, but everything is divinely planned. So, whether someone unexpectedly passes away or you get in a car accident, these things are divinely planned on both parties, right? It's not actually an accident, it's actually divinely planned for you. And I know that that's a really tough thing to grasp and to hold on to when you are in shock, or if you're being affected by shock in some way, because, I'm not trying to sound insensitive or anything, because I get it. I've been affected by this, like I said, many times, but not in this situation. I've never been in a car accident before. I've never been hit by somebody before. But I have felt shock many times, like I said, with people passing away, tragedies in that way. So I have felt shock. I do think it's different every time. I think every scenario is different. I think people deal with it differently. But again, I really do think that it's here to serve a purpose, to not live in fear. I know it brings up fear hardcore, but I think really its purpose is to just, like I said, jolt you. It's like those things, I don't know what they're called, but the medical things that like shock you. The shocks, I don't know. It gives you a shock and kind of reawakens you and everyone involved to, again, be grateful and to not take anything for granted, to not take advantage of anything, to, you know, and I know it sounds so cliche, and I don't want to get into the whole, you know, live like today's your last day, but, you know, how many times do we worry about stupid shit? I mean, I'm gonna call myself out on it too. Especially because we've all been going through such an intense time, and I've been going through such an intense period. You know, even to bring this back to last night, you know, I wrote one of my dear friends an email, and I was feeling really upset about not keeping in contact with her anymore, and, you know, all this stress of moving provinces and whatever, and, you know, just getting caught up in all this stuff and fears and thinking, how's someone going to reply to this, how's someone going to reply to that. You know, I also have been being very vulnerable and honest with people about how I feel about them, and, you know, just being really, really raw and genuine, and that brings up fear naturally. But at the same time, you know, we get to choose if we're going to stress out about it all day or not. And today I've certainly put in my place. And I realized how silly it is to be so worked up about so many things, because it is so safe for me to trust that I'm provided for, and so is everyone else, you know? I am so grateful that I wasn't more hurt and my family wasn't more hurt and the guy that ran into us wasn't hurt, you know, than we are. I mean, we're just sore and in shock, and it could have been a lot worse, and I have, again, experienced a lot worse in terms of car accidents with people that I love and losing loved ones to car accidents. But again, nothing is really an accident. You know, these things are divinely planned. And if someone comes into this lifetime and their soul agreement and their soul contract says that, you know, when I'm this age, this is how I need to pass, or, again, you know, open to interpretation, because we do have free will. You know, maybe the contract doesn't say set in stone, I'm going to pass away on this day because of this cause. You know, maybe it's just a way, like a potential way to pass. You know, why do you think that people are able to be revived, or people are able to miraculously come, you know, like recover from such traumatic things sometimes? You know, it's because it was in their soul agreement for that to happen, and, you know, our soul always has a choice. We always know when we're meant to be here and when we're meant to leave this physical body, and when we're meant to return to source, to spirit, to whatever you want to call it. So, you know, we have these divine big markers set up for us that we need to hit. And it's not like it's all set in stone. Like I said, we have free will and we have roads to take. And once you get to that point, and let's just say, for example, get in an accident, you know, your soul is going to kind of check in probably with spirit and choose, you know, okay, is it time for me to fully leave and go back to spirit, having learned everything I need to learn in this lifetime? Or should I return for my soul's growth? Is there more that I need to learn? And it's not a matter of, do people love me, or do I want to go be with my loved ones? Because obviously we all want to be here with our loved ones. We all want to live in this life as long as possible, for the most part, I think, you know. Obviously there are times when a lot of us have wanted to leave this planet, because it is so hard to be here sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, you know, like, don't we all want to just be able to cling on to our physical attachments and to our physical loved ones, to our physical family, to our physical friends? You know, obviously we don't all live in this physical body that we've chosen forever, but our souls are eternal. And, you know, it just reminds you, all of this just reminds me that this life is very special. And that's a message that I've kind of been bringing up a few times this year. it's like I said in my other video when I was talking about how special it is to be human. It is, you know? Like I said, I know how hard it is. I know how tough and how trying times can be. You know, I know. We all know. We've all been there. We've all had tragedies strike. We all have had heartache and heartbreak and horrible situations happen to us. Everybody's got a story. But this is also such a beautiful place to be. And no matter what happens in this physical world, our souls are eternal. We will live forever. Love always lives and prospers forever. Not to sound like some sci-fi thing, but, you know, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to leave it at that. You know, I hope this wasn't too all over the place for people. I know that it kind of is, but you can't really talk about a subject unless you're genuinely in the state. And I'm in the state right now of slowly starting to leave shock, but, you know, I'm still in it enough to be able to speak from shock. The energy of shock, the state of shock, the message of shock, which is not fear for your life and whatever. When you are in a state of shock, I'll leave it at this. When you're in a state of shock, I feel like you really are more connected to your higher self. I really feel like you're so connected to the divine because you're present. All of a sudden, even like I said, even if you're numb or whatever stage you're at, you know what to do in that moment. You automatically are receiving guidance of what to do. Even if you're numb, even if you don't have any recollection of what happened, because I totally get what that feels like, which is part of shock, you know? It feels like you're in this time warp and you're like, I don't even know what just happened 2 seconds ago. Is this real? Why is this happening? Why is this hurting? Whatever. Is this real kind of deal? It's very foggy, and I get it. But at the same time, don't you feel like you are so guided in that moment? Because your ego, I feel, steps out of the way. And I just got chills as I said that. And that's what I feel like this is. You know, the message of this. The ego is just like stripped. Your logical mind, your thoughts are stripped and out of the way. And you're acting from soul. I feel like shock is a soul activator. Where you are able to function from your higher self. Your higher self takes over, spirit takes over and says, okay, this is what's happening. Even if your logical mind isn't comprehending this right now, this is what you need to do. This is where you need to go. This is who you need to contact. Act on it, you know? Even if you feel like you're numb, what's really happening is your ego is just temporarily like shut off. And because remember, like, don't you feel like your emotions don't really come into play until you're in a later state of shock? Then things start to hit, then things start to feel real. That's when your logical mind starts to come back to the forefront a little bit. You can still be in a state of shock and feel emotion, but I'm just saying, you know, at first it's like everything kind of numbs out, everything just kind of woo, you know, elevates, lifts from you, and you get so tuned into your higher self, into spirit, and spirit just leads you and guides you to do whatever it is you need to do, whether that is your soul choosing to stay here, whether that's your soul completely, you know, being fine in the physical body still, whether, you know, you need to contact paramedics or police or whatever, whether you need to contact your family, whether you need to whatever, you know, like whatever it is that you need to do, what your soul needs to do at that moment, that's what happens. And spirit guides you perfectly, and you do not question it. You don't even question what spirit is telling you to do. You know, you are functioning, you're fully functioning from spirit. And I think that's what the beautiful thing about shock is. As I mentioned earlier, you could also be, you know, choosing to depart this world, or you could be choosing to not. I mean, this is whatever is in your soul plan and in your soul path, and that's not for me to say what's right and what's wrong, and who should stay and who should go, because we all have our own divine life plans, and our own soul, our own higher self will guide us to do what we need to do for ourselves and for the greater good of all. So I hope no one takes this in an insensitive way, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to express what I feel, like I said, from this state of shock. So hopefully this helps somebody out there somehow that maybe is in shock, or maybe has recently dealt with shock, or knows someone that is in shock or is going through shock as well. And just to realize what it's all about. I think it, again, is a soul activator and is trying to get us to cast our fears aside, to be grateful, to become more present in our lives, to, make sure that we really do tell ourselves and tell other people how much we love them unconditionally, and to put aside all the bullshit and to, live, to be happy. And who cares if it sounds cliche, like our lifetime this time around is pretty short. So enjoy it, be safe, and learn to trust yourself. Practice trusting yourself. You don't have to fear that you're going to become in shock one day, because I feel like people even fear being in shock because they feel like, oh, I have no control, because we all want control, don't we? Our egos. You don't have to feed into that, If you're meant to go into a state of shock for some reason one day, trust that you'll know what to do. You don't have to fear being in shock, because I honestly think it's the best thing that can happen to a human sometimes is to be in a state of shock where, again, ego is out of the way and you are just completely embodying soul, spirit, light, and love. So take care, guys. Hopefully I'll talk to you when I'm in a normal state. I trust that this serves you well. I trust that this is coming out for a reason. And again, I'm trying to be as genuine as possible, and please don't take this in any kind of insensitive way. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.